Hello, I'm Satyam and this is chapter 4 property definitions of my Blender Python scripting series. So, a property definition, we also call this property definitions props, props. And now the code you are seeing is actually a simple add-on that I have made to explain this properly. So, I'll give you a demo later, but let's now discuss about what property definition actually is. So, property definition is just like a data structure for storing Blender's data, and it is different from the data structure that we, this science people, usually study, like queue, stacks, etc. These are different. Like these are simply like our primary data types, but a bit different as they are Blender's own data types. And the difference between a simple primary data type like int float versus the blender's data type, which are called int property, string property, etc., is that the blender's data structure, the property definitions, can be accessed throughout blender and not in a single code file. Like, all right, so suppose this is my code. All right, this is text, but I can run it on a simple python environment too. Yeah, suppose this is a simple code, and then I can run it in a blender's or simply python's execute environment, right? On And if I make another file and another script, then I can run it too. But suppose I want to access this property, and a property from one script to on another script, then I need to import it. All right, but what if like I want to execute them both separately while still accessing the updated value? Well, this is actually a problem in computer science that we study in operating systems, like accessing data from here and from different file or from different locations, which is not possible in Python, right? Unless we do some complex structuring or complex system design, it is not possible. That's why we use this blender's property definitions. All right, so simply we use this blender's property definition because we want to access certain data from blender, and all and we want that data to be updated by different add-ons or different scripts too, right? That's why we use it. Suppose right now here you can see this is my cube, right? And on the right side of the screen you can see the objects properties. Now it has like certain properties like location, rotation, scale. These are all are changeable, and I can also change it from my code. Like suppose if I make a new code here, import bpy, and then like cube is equal to bpy dot context dot I'll simply use data here right now, data dot objects cube, right? Then I have this cube reference, then I can write cube dot location 0, which is for x, then 1 x location. All right, now if I execute this, the x location of the cube will be uh, added by 1 here, right? You saw that, right? Now if I press 10 here, it can happen. Now I can also do this with by using a different script, and it will work. And I can also get the location of the cube from here, like simply I can print it, right? Or simply I'll change it, since it is a read and write. So you can see I am changing this location of this cube, and this is also updating here. The location x is updating from this code. So you understand, right, why we are actually using the property definitions, because it updates the blender data itself, and right. And this is actually a float property. I'll show you the blender property definitions now, the document here. Here you can see the property definitions, bpy props. This modules defines property to extend blender's internal data. Well, this is all right, but mainly this property definition is a bit different than your then you have variable, right? So this is actually assigned to an existing class actually, and not to a variable. Like we like suppose when we make an object from class in Python, right, we assign a variable, then call that class or make an object. Well, here it is different. We actually need to assign this property definition to a prop of class. All right. So example here, I have imported like a Blender Python module, right? Now this is BPY types material. From here, like BPY types, I mean, if you look at BPY types, actually, you understand that BPY types is actually whatever classes or that whatever things that we can like change the values. It is BPY types. All right. Now there are multiple types like mesh, camera, menu, etc. There are tons of type here, etc. etc. You can we will come to it later. So BPY types is actually just uh, in class for different objects, or we can say things for Blender, and in this class we can assign a new attribute or property, right? Now if you have learned Python properly, then you know this is class here mainly. This is a class, this is class, and this is also a class. Then this all is a class. Material has inherited BPY and types, and this custom float is actually an attribute of material type, and this attribute is being assigned this property or props, the float here actually. All right. So it is simple, class, property, and then definition. It's simple. Now we have multiple uh, parameters to them, which you can understand it, I guess. All right. Now there are multiple like name, description, translation, context, which I'll show you right now with my code that I've written here. Now I'll execute this code. Now it is executed, and the custom panel is here too, right here. My custom panel, cube location, and string hello world. So I'll reference it here so you can like look at it. All right. So here, so this is props. All right, this is actually float property. Here, so I have put the name of the property as cube location. The name is actually different than our variable name. This is used to define here like this. When we want to show it in panel, the panel will itself show like this, cube location, etc. Then there's a custom float property. This is a tooltip. You can see this is tooltip. Default value, the value which is set to be default whenever called. The min value is -10, max is 20, which means I can put 20, and if I put 30, then it will always stay at 20. So you can understand max and min, right? Now this soft min is the slider's minimum value, and soft max is slider's max value. And after, but you know, here the float property has maximum value of 20. Yeah, and I cannot increase it by after 10. That is because this is soft max. So after this soft max, I have to manually write the value for it to increase. Now option animatable. Animatable is simply so that we can keyframe the location like here and here, and update. So whenever I change this value, you can see that the location of the cube is changing. The change location function is executing whenever I change this value, right? Now here the change location, change loc what function. So I'm accessing the cube, then I'm writing the cube's location, And right now, as you see, I have also assigned this property to scenes, I mean to the class scene. So if I want to access this custom property, like I'll set 1.7856 here. So if I just copy this one and make a new file, import bpy. So alright, so right now this is a classes attribute, right? So I cannot directly print this value. Like see here, I'll show you the screen. I'll execute it, and then you can see that it is showing me property deferred, built-in float property, name, all of these things. This is actually the definition that we have done. But if I want to access this value, I need to access it from my from the scene class. Alright, now you see that this is from the scene class itself. I mean I have like given this custom property to the class scene itself. So if I create a new scene from here, uh, the the new scene will have the same the new scene will have the same property. So I'll write it here, and you can see uh, well, this is actually my previous code, not current one. So I'll just go back to my current scene and I'll show you the value of this type. So to get the value, I'll have to access the scene property, right, or the scene data. So bpy.data.scenes, then access scene dot my custom float. When I executed the code, and you can see here the value is written right here, and I'll just copy this code and change the scene. Yeah, no need. Alright, and then I'll change the scene name, then it will also execute too. Well, you see when I executed it, this one changed, and also the value of this custom property was set to 1 because the default property was 1 right here. So this is our Blender's property definitions, and this is very useful for when we want to make a add-on, right? An add-on can have multiple properties that we want to access throughout the whole Blender file. So that's why we use it, the property definitions. So this is it for the chapter. In the next chapter we'll look at operators, this one, and from here the things will start to get interesting, because from here we can directly perform some actions to our blender data or blender's objects, like a mesh cube. We can like merge them and do stuff like here. We can do stuff with it, like move this vertex or this one with the code. Thank you. We'll see you in the next video.